My wife posted that wives shouldn't settle for less and that their husband might not be there forever. What she didn't expect was that her anti-settling sermon would teach me to stop settling too. It started on a Thursday evening when I was scrolling through Instagram while she was in the kitchen making her usual post-dinner smoothie. The notification popped up at the top of my feed, and I almost scrolled past it until I saw her profile picture attached to it. Wives, don't settle for less. Your husband might not be your forever. I stared at the screen for a solid 10 seconds, reading it again. This wasn't some repost or share. This was original content from my wife's account, complete with a lengthy caption underneath that made my blood pressure spike. Ladies, we need to talk about something uncomfortable but necessary. Too many of us are living in marriages where we've convinced ourselves that okay is good enough. But what if I told you that settling for a mediocre husband is actually betraying the woman God intended you to be? The post had over 300 likes already, and the comments were rolling in fast. Women were sharing their own stories, thanking her for being brave enough to speak truth, and using fire emojis like their lives depended on it. I kept reading. I've been studying biblical marriage patterns, and nowhere does it say we have to stay stuck with men who don't match our growth. If your husband isn't evolving spiritually, emotionally, or financially alongside you, maybe it's time to consider that he wasn't meant to be your final destination. My hands tightened around the phone. She was talking about our marriage, our actual marriage, to 3,000 followers. The comments section was a mess of agreement and debate, but what caught my attention were the responses she was giving. She wasn't just posting and disappearing. She was actively engaging, giving advice, and promoting something called the unstuck wife method. Hey girl, yes, I've been exactly where you are. DM me if you want to join our prayer circle. We meet every Tuesday night on Zoom to discuss how to navigate these situations with wisdom and biblical backing. I clicked on her profile to see what else I'd apparently missed while living in the same house as her. What I found made my jaw clench. Post after post of marriage advice, empowerment content, and promotional material for some kind of online ministry she'd apparently launched. Her bio now read, Biblical Marriage Coach, helping wives find their worth, Tuesday prayer circles, link in bio, for free consultation. The link led to a professional website I'd never seen before, complete with testimonial videos and a booking calendar for paid consultations. She was charging $75 for 1-hour sessions to help women discern their marriage path through prayer and practical wisdom. I walked into the kitchen where she was washing her blender, humming some worship song like nothing had happened. Interesting post tonight, I said, setting my phone on the counter. She didn't even look up. Which one? I've been really active lately. The engagement has been incredible. The one about husbands not being forever. Now she turned around, and I caught something in her expression. Not guilt exactly, but awareness that I'd seen it. Oh, that one. Yeah, it's getting a lot of traction. Women need to hear these things. Too many of us stay in situations that limit our potential because we think marriage means settling. And you felt qualified to give that advice because she dried her hands on the dish towel, that familiar defensive posture creeping into her shoulders. Because I've lived it. Because I understand what it feels like to wonder if you married the right person. And because I have a calling to help other women work through these questions. A calling. Yes, a calling. Just because you don't understand spiritual gifts doesn't mean they're not real. I picked up my phone and scrolled back to her post. So when you wrote about husbands who don't evolve financially, were you talking about anyone in particular? Her face flushed slightly. I write from a place of general experience and observation. It's not always about us specifically, right? In this prayer circle you're running every Tuesday. It's a support group. Women helping women navigate difficult seasons. For money, I offer free prayer support. The consultations are separate. I'm not charging people to pray with them. I nodded slowly, processing this information. My wife had apparently built an entire side business around critiquing marriage, using our relationship as source material, without mentioning it to me once. How long has this been going on? The ministry? About 4 months. But I've been feeling called to this work for over a year. For months. For months of her posting content that painted marriage as something temporary and husbands as potentially disposable, while I came home every day thinking we were working toward the same goals. And the website? The booking system? That just appeared overnight. She crossed her arms. I invested in making it professional because women deserve quality support. This isn't some hobby blog. I'm helping people. The way she said it, like I was somehow the problem for asking questions about her secret marriage coaching business, made something click into place. I looked at her standing there in our kitchen, defending her right to counsel other women about leaving their husbands, while simultaneously expecting me to support her emotionally and financially without question. Well, I said, sliding my phone into my pocket, I guess I better start paying attention to these posts. Sounds like there's a lot I've been missing. She relaxed slightly, probably thinking I was backing down. I think you'd actually find some of the content helpful. A lot of what I teach applies to both spouses. It's about growth and not settling for mediocrity in any area of life. I smiled. You know what? You're absolutely right. I should definitely stop settling for less. The irony was completely lost on her. The next morning, I decided to dig deeper into my wife's newfound ministry. While she was at her usual Saturday yoga class, I pulled up her website on my laptop and went through everything with the attention to detail I usually reserve for work contracts. What I found was more elaborate than I'd initially realized. She had 3 different service tiers: basic prayer support for free, guided spiritual discernment sessions for $75, and something called Complete Life Alignment Coaching for $250 per session. The testimonials page featured women thanking her for helping them find clarity about their marriage situations and gain courage to pursue their authentic path. But the real discovery came when I clicked on her blog section. Post after post detailing marriage struggles that sounded suspiciously familiar. She'd changed names and minor details, but I recognized our arguments, our financial discussions, even our conversations about future plans. All of it repackaged as teaching material for her audience. One post titled, "When He Says He Supports Your Dreams, but His Actions Say Otherwise," was basically a play-by-play of the conversation we'd had last month about her wanting to start some kind of business. I'd asked practical questions about business plans and startup costs, which apparently translated into not supporting her dreams for content purposes. Another post, "The Provider Trap: Why Financial Dependence Keeps You Stuck," made my blood boil. She wrote about women who stay in unfulfilling marriages because their husbands handle the bills, completely ignoring the fact that she hadn't contributed a dime to our household expenses in over 2 years while she found her purpose. I was still reading when she came back from yoga, gym bag slung over her shoulder, and that post-workout glow that usually made me smile. Today, it just reminded me that her yoga membership was another expense I covered while she built her marriage-bashing empire. "Good workout?" I asked, not looking up from the laptop. "Amazing." The instructor led us through this meditation about releasing what no longer serves us. It was exactly what I needed to hear. Sounds therapeutic. Speaking of things that serve us, I've been looking at your website. She froze halfway through pulling her water bottle from her bag. "Oh, okay. What did you think?" "Impressive setup. Very professional. The blog section is particularly interesting." I turned the laptop around so she could see the screen. Her post about the provider trap was still open. This one caught my attention. The part about women staying in marriages for financial security. Really insightful stuff. Her face went through several expressions before settling on defensive. That's a real issue many women face. I'm helping them recognize patterns that keep them stuck. Right? And the example you used about the woman whose husband questions every business idea she has, that felt really authentic. I draw from common experiences women share with me. It's not always about us specifically, except it is specifically about us. This conversation you wrote about, we had it 3 weeks ago, almost word for word. She sat down across from me, and I could see her mentally shifting into whatever mode she used for her coaching sessions. "Look, I understand why you might feel uncomfortable seeing our experiences reflected in my work, but I'm careful to protect our privacy while still sharing wisdom that can help others." Protect our privacy? You literally described our kitchen renovation discussion as an example of financial manipulation. I changed the details. You changed it from kitchen to bathroom. Same argument, same dollar amount, same outcome. She was quiet for a moment, probably trying to figure out how to spin this. I decided to keep going. "I'm also curious about the money aspect. How much are you making from this ministry?" "It's not about the money. That's not what I asked." She sighed. "I'm building something meaningful. Yes, there's income involved, but that's secondary to the impact I'm having on women's lives." "How much?" "Last month I brought in about $4,000. I stared at her. "$4,000. She'd made $4,000 in 1 month telling women their husbands might not be worth keeping, while I covered every single expense in our household. For $1,000, I repeated. It's growing every month. This month I'm projected to hit 6,000. And where is this money going? I'm reinvesting it into the business. I hired a social media manager, and I'm working with a web designer to expand the platform. I also bought some courses on online marketing. So you're making thousands of dollars per month giving marriage advice, but none of that money is contributing to our actual marriage or household. I'm building something bigger. This requires investment. While I pay the mortgage, utilities, groceries, your car payment, insurance, and apparently your yoga membership. Her jaw tightened. I never asked you to pay for everything. You insisted on handling the finances because you said you wanted to focus on finding your calling. I didn't realize your calling involved telling women their husbands are potentially temporary while living entirely off my income. That's not fair. You're twisting what I do. I pulled up another one of her posts, this one titled, "Why He's a Good Provider Isn't Enough Anymore." Am I twisting it? Because this post specifically talks about how women shouldn't stay grateful just because their husbands pay the bills. How providing financially is the bare minimum and shouldn't earn a man points in his marriage. She read the post over my shoulder, and I watched her face change as she realized how it looked. The point I was making is that relationships need emotional and spiritual connection beyond financial stability. Right? While you're emotionally and spiritually connecting with your followers about how their husbands aren't good enough, and I'm financially connecting with our reality by paying for everything that keeps your coaching business running. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Because I'm starting to see a pattern here. You've built a business teaching women not to settle, funded entirely by me settling for a wife who contributes zero to our household while publicly questioning the value of husbands who provide for their families. She stood up abruptly. I can't believe you're trying to make my calling about money. I'm not making it about money. You already did that when you started charging women for advice on leaving their marriages while depending on your husband to subsidize your lifestyle. I help women find their worth. Great. When do you plan to start finding yours enough to contribute to the life you're living? The question hung in the air between us. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it, then opened it again. I can't believe you're being so unsupportive right now. And there it was, the deflection I'd been expecting. My questions about her business model and content were somehow about me not supporting her dreams. You know what? I said, closing the laptop. You're right. I should be more supportive of your message about not settling. The relief that crossed her face told me everything I needed to know about how this conversation was supposed to end, with me backing down and her going back to business as usual. But that wasn't going to happen. Not this time. I was done settling. After that conversation, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of having more pointless arguments, I was going to document exactly what my wife was building and how she was building it. Sunday morning, while she was getting ready for church, I started taking screenshots. Every post, every comment she made, every piece of advice she gave to her followers. I organized them by date and theme in a folder on my computer that I labeled Business Analysis. What emerged was a clear pattern that she probably hadn't even recognized herself. Her most popular posts were always the ones that painted husbands as obstacles to overcome. When he says you're being too ambitious, had gotten 800 likes. Signs your husband is threatened by your growth, hit over 1,000. Meanwhile, any content about working together or improving marriages barely cracked 50 interactions. Her audience didn't want marriage advice. They wanted permission to leave. Monday evening, while she was on her weekly coaching call with what she called her VIP clients, I went through our bank statements from the past 6 months. The numbers told a story that contradicted everything she'd been preaching about financial independence. Coffee shops where she held strategy sessions, my credit card. Gas for driving to her networking events, my credit card. The ring light and microphone for her content creation, my credit card. Even the website hosting and business registration fees, my credit card. But the real revelation came when I found the receipts for her business investment purchases. She'd bought a $3,000 online course called Scale Your Coaching Empire and a $2,000 mastermind program for six-figure spiritual entrepreneurs, all charged to cards that I paid off every month. So she was spending $5,000 learning how to teach women about financial independence while being completely financially dependent herself. Tuesday night was her prayer circle meeting. I could hear her in the home office, leading her group through what sounded like a guided meditation about releasing limiting beliefs about marriage. Remember, ladies, just because something worked for your grandmother's generation doesn't mean it has to work for you. We're called to honor God with our whole lives, not just the parts that make our husbands comfortable. I sat in the living room, laptop open, documenting everything I could hear, not to use against her, but to understand exactly what she was selling and why it was so popular. I want you to think about this question. If you could redesign your marriage from scratch, what would it look like? Don't edit yourself. Don't think about what's realistic. Just dream. The responses from her group members were telling. Most of them weren't talking about improving communication or working through problems. They were talking about completely different lives with completely different men. Sarah, that's beautiful. Sometimes God puts desires in our hearts because He's preparing us for a different path. Don't dismiss those feelings. After the call ended, she came into the living room looking energized in a way I hadn't seen in months. How was your meeting? I asked. Incredible. These women are experiencing such breakthroughs. There's so much power when women come together to support each other's growth. What kind of breakthroughs? Clarity about their relationships, understanding their worth, recognizing patterns they've been settling for. Any of them working on improving their marriages? She paused, considering the question. That's not really the focus. We're more about helping women understand what they deserve and empowering them to pursue it, even if what they deserve isn't what they currently have. Especially then, why would someone stay in a situation that limits their potential? I nodded, filing away her response. She wasn't helping women fix their marriages. She was helping them justify ending them. Wednesday morning, I did something I'd never done before. I created a fake social media account and requested to join her private Facebook group called Wives Awakening to Their Worth. The content inside was even more direct than her public posts. Women sharing intimate details about their marriages, and my wife responding with questions that seemed designed to highlight everything wrong with their relationships. He sounds controlling. Do you think his reaction to your new goals might be revealing something about his character? Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Pray about whether this relationship is aligned with God's highest purpose for your life. Sometimes the people closest to us are the least supportive of our growth because our evolution threatens their comfort zone. Every response guided these women toward the same conclusion. Their husbands were the problem, and they deserved better. But here's what made it all click for me. In her private messages to group members, she was scheduling paid consultations. The free prayer support was actually a funnel to her coaching services. She was using spiritual language to build trust, then monetizing their marital problems. Thursday night, I finally understood the full scope of what she'd built. It wasn't just social media posts and coaching calls. She had affiliate partnerships with divorce attorneys, referral agreements with life coaches, and she was even promoting financial planning services specifically for women transitioning out of marriage. She'd created an entire ecosystem designed to profit from broken marriages, including her own. Friday evening, she got a call that changed everything. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard her voice get excited from the home office. Are you serious? That's incredible. Yes, absolutely. When do you need an answer? She came running into the kitchen, practically bouncing. You're not going to believe this. I just got offered a book deal. A book deal. A publisher wants me to write about helping women recognize when their marriage isn't serving their purpose. They're calling it When Forever Isn't Forever, a Christian woman's guide to spiritual discernment in marriage. She was glowing. This was the validation she'd been working toward. The advance is $25,000, and they want to fast-track it for publication next spring. $25,000. For a book about when marriage isn't forever, while being married to me. Congratulations, I said, turning back to the stove. That's quite an accomplishment. I know you haven't always understood what I'm building, but this proves that what I'm doing matters. This could help thousands of women. I'm sure it will. The publisher wants to meet with me next week to discuss the outline and marketing strategy. They think this could be really big. I nodded, stirring the pasta sauce and thinking about everything I discovered over the past 5 days. My wife was about to become a published author teaching women when to leave their husbands, funded by a husband she was potentially preparing to leave herself. The irony was almost beautiful in its completeness. Well, I said, not turning around. I guess we'll see how forever works out for everyone involved. She was too excited to catch the tone in my voice. But that was fine. I had everything I needed to make sure her anti-settling message reached its intended conclusion. Saturday morning, while she was at her book planning meeting with the publisher, I made my move. I logged into my Instagram account for the first time in months and found her original post that started everything. Wives, don't settle for less. Your husband might not be your forever. Still sitting at over 2,000 likes and hundreds of comments from women sharing their relationship struggles. I read through the responses one more time, watching women pour out their hearts about feeling undervalued, unsupported, and ready for change. Then I crafted my response. Interesting perspective. As the husband funding this anti-settling ministry, I've learned so much about not settling myself. Like not settling for paying all the bills while my wife charges women $250 per hour to question their marriages. Or not settling for financing someone's business that teaches wives their providers are just the bare minimum. Thank you for showing me that forever works both ways. Your sermon about not settling just taught me to stop settling too. I attached screenshots of our bank statements showing every business expense I'd covered, her website pricing, and a few choice quotes from her private coaching group. Then I tagged her official business account and hit post. Within 20 minutes, my comment had 50 likes. Within an hour, it had over 300. By noon, people were sharing screenshots of it on their own stories. Her followers didn't know how to respond to actual facts about the business they'd been supporting. Some tried to defend her, but when presented with the financial breakdown of who was actually funding her empowerment ministry, the conversation shifted quickly. Wait, so her husband pays for everything while she tells us not to settle for providers? The irony is incredible. She's literally settling for financial dependence while teaching independence. This is exactly why I don't trust these online coaches. They're selling dreams they're not even living. The comments kept coming. Women who had been sharing their marriage problems in her previous posts were now questioning the advice they'd received. Some started sharing their own experiences with coaches who seemed to profit more from broken relationships than fixed ones. But the real explosion happened when someone found her book announcement and connected it to my comment. She's writing a book about when forever isn't forever while married to the man bankrolling her entire operation? This is peak hypocrisy. That comment got shared over 1,000 times. By Saturday evening, my wife's phone had been buzzing nonstop. She came home from her publisher meeting looking frazzled instead of excited. "We need to talk," she said, dropping her purse on the counter with more force than necessary. "Sure. How did the book meeting go? Don't play dumb. You know exactly what happened." My publisher is concerned about the negative attention surrounding my brand. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been watching her comment sections explode all day. Negative attention? You posted our private financial information on social media. You violated my privacy and potentially damaged my business relationships. I posted factual information about how your business operates. Everything I shared was verifiable and relevant to your content. You had no right to expose our personal finances. You had no right to use our personal relationship as content for your business without discussing it with me first. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. We both knew she couldn't deny that part. The publisher is asking questions about the authenticity of my message now. They want to know how I can credibly write about financial independence while being financially dependent. That does seem like a reasonable question. This isn't a joke. You could have cost me this book deal. Actually, your business model cost you the book deal. I just pointed out the contradiction. Her phone buzzed again. She looked at it, and her face went pale. "What now?" I asked. 3 women are requesting refunds for coaching packages. They're saying they don't feel comfortable taking advice from someone who isn't living what she teaches. "How much are we talking about?" $2,000 so far. I nodded. "Well, at least they're applying your lessons about not settling for less than they deserve." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "I can't believe you're enjoying this." "I'm not enjoying it, but I'm not upset about it either. You built a business teaching women not to accept situations that don't serve them. Now your customers are applying that same logic to your services. That's not the same thing, isn't it? They paid for authentic guidance about relationships and discovered their coach was living in contradiction to everything she was teaching. Seems like they're just following your advice about recognizing when something isn't what it appears to be." Her phone buzzed again. And again, this is getting out of control. People are posting about it in the group. Your private Facebook group? Yes, some of the members are questioning whether my advice has been compromised by my personal situation. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Look, this doesn't have to destroy everything you've built. You could pivot your message. Focus on improving marriages instead of ending them. Teach couples how to grow together instead of apart. There's probably a bigger market for that anyway. She looked at me like I'd suggested she start speaking in tongues. That's not my calling. Your calling is to break up marriages? My calling is to help women recognize their worth and stop settling for relationships that limit their potential, even if those relationships are funding your ability to deliver that message. The question hung between us. Her phone kept buzzing, but she ignored it this time. I think, she said carefully, that you've made your feelings about my ministry very clear. And I think I've learned something important about the kind of support I can expect from you moving forward. What kind of support did you expect? Did you think I would keep paying for you to build a business around convincing women their husbands aren't good enough? Did you think I would smile and write checks while you used our marriage as a case study and settling for less? I thought you would trust that I know what I'm doing. I do trust that you know what you're doing. That's exactly the problem. Her phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and declined it. That was my social media manager. She says the negative comments are spreading to other platforms. Someone created a thread breaking down everything you posted. Sounds like your message is really resonating with people. This isn't funny. You're right. It's not funny. It's educational. All these women are learning exactly what happens when you don't settle for less than you deserve, including me. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her brain working through the implications of what I'd just said. What does that mean? It means your anti-settling sermon worked perfectly, just not the way you intended. The buzzing from her phone had become constant now. Her empire was collapsing in real time, and we both knew it. But this was only the beginning. By Sunday afternoon, my wife's damage control efforts were failing. Her followers were asking hard questions about authenticity and financial hypocrisy. That's when I decided to end this properly. Monday evening, I set up my phone in the kitchen and went live on Instagram. Within minutes, hundreds of viewers joined. Good evening. For those following the Wives Don't Settle controversy, I'm the husband who's been funding that ministry. Tonight, I want to thank my wife for her incredible teachings. I held up divorce papers, making sure they were visible. Her lessons about not settling have been so inspiring that I've decided to apply them myself. Right now, I'm signing these divorce papers because she taught me I deserve better. The viewer count hit over 2,000. Comments exploded. My wife charges women hundreds of dollars to question their marriages while depending entirely on her own marriage for survival. She's writing a book called When Forever Isn't Forever, funded by the forever she's been undermining. I signed the first page slowly. So I want to thank her Tuesday prayer circle for helping me realize I shouldn't settle for someone who uses our marriage as content while contributing nothing to our actual partnership. I could hear her wrapping up her prayer meeting in the home office. For her clients requesting refunds, I'd suggest acting quickly. Without my support, I'm not sure how she'll fulfill existing obligations. I signed the final page. Thank you to everyone who supported her message about not settling. You helped me realize I was settling for a wife who taught independence while practicing complete dependence. I ended the live stream and walked into her office as she finished her call. Keep walking in your power, ladies. Trust God's plan. She hung up and saw my expression. What happened? I handed her the papers. I stopped settling for a wife who treats marriage like a business opportunity while contributing zero to the actual marriage. She stared at the documents. You're insane. I'm applying your teachings. You said husbands might not be forever and women shouldn't settle for relationships that don't serve growth. Same logic. Her phone started buzzing frantically. Check social media. I live streamed signing the papers and thanked your prayer group for the inspiration. Her face went white as she saw the replay climbing toward 4,000 views. This destroys everything. No, this validates everything. You built a business around not settling. Congratulations. Your methodology works perfectly. Her phone exploded with notifications. Followers, clients, and her publisher would all have questions now. Your message about forever not being forever just became your reality. But don't worry, you taught me that endings are actually new beginnings. She finally understood. Her own strategy had been turned against her with surgical precision. The student had surpassed the teacher. Within 48 hours, my wife's entire empire collapsed. The live stream had been shared across every platform. Her publisher called Tuesday morning to cancel the book deal. They couldn't market a book about ending marriages by someone whose own marriage ended because she taught her husband to leave. Her coaching clients demanded refunds en masse. Turns out women didn't want relationship advice from someone who couldn't maintain her own relationship while preaching independence she didn't practice. The Facebook group imploded. Members posted screenshots of her contradictory advice and questioned everything she taught them. The Tuesday prayer circle disbanded after 3 women admitted they'd been manipulated into leaving good marriages. Wednesday afternoon, she came home from meeting with a bankruptcy attorney. "I hope you're satisfied," she said, dropping legal papers on the kitchen table. "Actually, I am. Your teachings worked exactly as advertised. I'm losing everything. You're experiencing the natural consequences of building a business on hypocrisy. This is what happens when you don't practice what you preach." She'd aged 5 years in 3 days. The confident coach persona had evaporated completely. "The refunds alone will wipe out everything I made. I can't afford the business debts without your income. Sounds like you should have thought about financial independence before teaching other women to pursue it. What am I supposed to do now? Get a real job. Contribute to society instead of profiting from broken relationships. Learn what actual work feels like." The divorce proceeded smoothly. Since she'd contributed nothing to our assets while building her failed empire, the settlement was straightforward. I kept the house, she kept her business debts. 3 months later, I saw her working at a local coffee shop. The irony was beautiful. The woman who'd charged hundreds of dollars to help wives find their worth was now making minimum wage serving overpriced lattes. Her social media accounts had been deleted. The website was down. The empowerment empire had vanished like it never existed. But the best part came 6 months later when I got a message from one of her former clients. "I wanted to thank you for exposing her. I almost left my husband because of her coaching. After seeing what happened, we went to real marriage counseling instead. We're stronger than ever now." Several other women reached out with similar stories. Marriages saved because they'd seen through the facade before it was too late. My ex-wife had inadvertently taught the most valuable lesson of all. Real relationships require authentic people, not performance artists selling dreams they're not living. I rebuilt my life with genuine people who contributed rather than consumed. Found someone who believed in building together instead of tearing down for profit. Meanwhile, she learned what her own advice felt like when applied by someone else. The woman who taught wives not to settle had finally met someone who wouldn't settle for her. Her anti-settling sermon had worked perfectly, just not the way she intended. The student had indeed surpassed the teacher, and the lesson was complete.